Hey YouTube, my name is Kyle and I want to give you the 1-year review on my 2015 F150 with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. A couple things that I want to cover in this vlog. First of which being that there are a couple of things that I just need to pay attention to a little bit more closely that I'll explain in a little bit later on in the video. But the first one is I've had the truck now for a little over a year. I have 22,000 miles on my vehicle, and I can tell you that the OEM tires that come on this thing are absolutely terrible. For highway use and in good weather, I guess they're not bad. I didn't really notice it much last year, and that's probably because last year in the wintertime is right when I got the vehicle, and the tires were brand new at that point in time, so I probably didn't really notice it much in the wintertime. But now that I have a little bit of wear on the tires, I can definitely see a difference in the amount of traction that I have when it gets cold. I live in Wisconsin. Today we have 7 degrees with air temperature, and with wind chill we're down to about minus 20, minus 25. So it's fairly cold here in the wintertime. And more importantly, I notice it tremendously when it snows out. And when it snows, I have little to no grip unless I'm in 4-wheel drive. So, which leads me to my next point. I would advise anyone that has a newer vehicle, a newer F150, the aluminum style, even if you have older trucks, it doesn't hurt it at all. Throw some weight in the back end of your truck, especially in the wintertime. Now, there are right ways and there are wrong ways of doing it. This is just the way that I do. You can do what you like. By all means, it's your truck and your investment. But I can give you my opinion on what I see and what I do. So what I do is I get between 300 and 400 pounds. This year I got about 320 pounds. I got 8 bags of 40-pound bag salt, and I threw it in the back end of my truck, and I positioned them just in front of the rear axle. The reason why I do that is because it distributes the load throughout the entire vehicle and not just in one area. And that does a couple of things. For one, it's less stress on my suspension, and it's less stress on my driveline. So that's the way that I do it. I've done it that way for years, have never once had an issue. Doesn't really affect your miles or your mileage hardly at all, because it is some weight, but it's not an absolutely astronomical amount of weight. It ends up just helping just with a little bit more traction. The one thing you guys have to understand is that the differences between the older trucks, in Ford in particular, again, with older trucks versus the newer ones, is that yes, they took out roughly 600-700 pounds worth of weight. And in my particular vehicle, it was more like 650 pounds worth of weight versus a comparable model in 2014. Your weight distribution, so 43% of the weight of your truck is actually on the rear axle, which is normally just a number. Most people don't really care about that too much unless you're into racing, or if you live in a colder climate. And what happens is when you have less weight on the back tires, you have less traction, and when it snows out, it's harder to get around. So the older trucks had an additional couple hundred pounds on the rear tires because the vehicle itself was heavier, which meant that there was more weight on the back tires. I added 300-400 pounds worth of salt in the back, and that helps alleviate some of the traction issues. You don't need to put in 1,000 pounds in the bed of your truck. That is just stupid. You're going to wear out your suspension. You're going to add extra stress to your driveline. Does you absolutely no good. Actually does more harm than good. So don't do that. I've seen guys that drive around with that, and the tail of the rear of their vehicle is, squatted down so damn bad that, you have to adjust your headlights in order to compensate for the weight of the bed, so you're not blinding people when you're driving. So I had a little bit of weight, helps tremendously, doesn't add any extra stress, and your truck can handle it without a problem. Times that you can start running into an issue is when you add in too much weight or you load it incorrectly. So this is not a video about that. I can explain that later on if you guys choose or want me to do so. But just know that putting a little bit of weight in your bed of your truck is okay. The next thing is, let me shift this over a little bit so it's not necessarily into the view with the shifter there, so you can see me a little better. The next thing is, and probably what is most important in the 1 year that I've had this truck, is the fact that I usually go between about 7,500 to 9,000 miles in between my oil changes. I use a quality full synthetic oil, so I can go that amount of miles. I do put on quite a few miles going to and from work. I put on a little more than 70 miles a day, so the miles do add up relatively quickly, and I don't want to be sitting there changing my oil all the time if I use a conventional. With having the extra heat and stress of having a turbocharged engine, I opted to go synthetic just to extend it out a little bit longer and to give it more protection when I'm driving around. So at that 75 to 8,000 or 9,000 mile mark, when I changed my oil last, I did notice that I was about a half a quart low. Now, I don't know if that is typical from turbocharged engines. I've driven them in the past, but I've never actually owned one. This is my first one I've owned. So I don't know if that's normal with, the heat cycles and the way that the turbos are plumbed and everything else, if it just kind of, I don't know if it like vaporizes or burns or what it does, but I don't know if that's normal or not. On the other side of that coin, going that kind of miles and only being down a half a quart probably isn't anything to worry about, but it is a brand new truck, and I know that when I did my first oil change, which was at, I think I changed it out between 5,000 and 6,000 miles to get the break-in oil out of there, it was spot on. So I'm willing to bet that just as the higher miles goes on, with the more heat cycles and the use, you're naturally going to use some oil, and that just might be the amount of oil that it uses in that time frame. So just something that I have to keep check on. Let me know if you guys are running into anything different or if you have any other further questions. But as far as reliability goes, I haven't had anything go wrong with this truck. It's been an absolute dream. It's been 100% reliable. Never had any four-wheel drive issues, no warning lights. Damn, I haven't even had a headlight or a taillight go out. I mean, literally everything has been just beautiful. So that's been my experience with the truck. If you guys have any other different experiences with the 2.7 in general or the newer F150s, by all means shoot me a comment or send me a message, and I'll respond back to the best of my knowledge. Until then, take care, guys. Have a great day.